What's going on, Tubes? It's your boy Black Oni here with more E3 reactions. We're taking a look at the Marvel's Avengers Black Panther expansion. I've got some thoughts even before this begins and before I give you my thoughts on what we see. Black Oni. Avengers is a game that I have strong thoughts on. I really enjoy the base gameplay loop of the Avengers. I think the idea of what they're trying to do with the Avengers is really strong. I think the wealth of reference materials and sources and things that they can do goes far beyond any other Marvel game that we have seen, or even superhero game that we've seen up to now. I think that the biggest hurdles that this game has to overcome are as followed. One of them is absolutely crossplay. To launch your game in 2020 and not have crossplay is a huge disservice to everybody who was interested or invested in this game. We're at a point now where so many games are out that have crossplay, and it works well enough to put that as a priority for other games, where as a content creator, I don't have to worry about, if I do a community night, I don't have to worry about if the person who wants to join is playing on Xbox or playing on PC or playing on PlayStation 5 or playing on PlayStation 4. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. It's just really all about bringing people together. And because Avengers is such a multiplayer-centric game, to not have crossplay at launch or to not have any discussion about crossplay during this entire thing is a huge slap in the face of people like myself, and also to people like you all who are interested in the game as well. I've stand this game so much, and I still do deeply have a special place in my heart for the game, but it is really like hurting my soul at its core to know that that wasn't there at the beginning, and it's still not here. And the game came out in September? August 14th, 2020. It came out in August. We're about to be a full year in, and there has been no real discussion from their end about crossplay. Mind-blowing. The second thing is expanded progression in characters that you bring along the mission with you. Let's say, for example, I'm meaning Black Widow. I want a second Thor. I get to end game with Black Widow. I'm like, great, I'm ready to start playing with Thor as well. I have to start all the way over, even if I've been bringing Thor along my journey with me. They're not gaining any additional experience by being there and contributing. Frustrating to have to kind of start literally all the way over and do all the same missions that you just did before. I love the gameplay loop. I've said it many times already, but the fact that there's no flexibility in allowing you to kind of catch up with certain characters, at least to an extent, is really a disservice. The third thing that I wanted to mention is with regards to loot. The loot in Avengers is extremely boring. All you're getting are just stat changes to things. You're not really getting a lot of unique modifiers to the way that you play the game, and there's not a lot of unique visual representation to coincide with that. Obviously, there are skins for these characters that you have to kind of compete against, right? If you want a solution to that, have a base armor or base costume set that you can change with new gear if people really wanted to have the base armor but with the gear that they find and with transmog, right? Be able to make it, customize it, and pick and choose and kind of go back and forth between changing things to fit an aesthetic that is unique and different and satisfying to a player, so that if they find loot, even if they decide not to use that loot, they can still transmog and put that as a component on the base model for customization. That is another missed opportunity where how could you have made a loot-based RPG and then made all the loot extremely boring? You're calling it a loot-based action RPG and your loot is garbage. How did we get here? I think traversal for characters that aren't inherently flight characters needs to be adjusted. I'll use Black Widow as an example for this. She has a grapple hook, and I'm hoping that they don't screw this up with Spider-Man's inclusion as well. She has a grapple hook that isn't very useful. And what I mean by that is you can get an upgrade to allow you to do like a longer swing on it, but your range on how you can actually use the grapple hook is really limited. So if you're traversing in the environment and you wanted to grapple up to a spot that was just out of reach of you, you can't actually do that. You can't even like grapple to a point and then jump off and grapple again. You have a lot of limited options. You really should be able to just continuously grapple after you've initiated your first one. And they give you just very few options for how you can navigate through the environment. And Captain America, I mean, he has a wall run, but that's only useful in certain places and circumstances. So it's really not much better for him either. With Hulk, he has that super jump, which is super fun and nice, but he should be able to climb anything because his fingers can just dig into whatever he wants. Like, he's Hulk. Characters who don't have flight abilities are severely limited and hampered in terms of traversal in the game, and I would like them to take a look at that and see how they can flesh that out more. And the last thing I wanted to mention, a big change for Avengers, which maybe we'll see this with the expansion, maybe not, is we need to see much bigger variants of enemies, even if it's visual changes to our basic enemies, or we're fighting robots literally 90% of the time. And one of the fanfics that Kamala talked about in the very beginning of the game with like the lizard people, like, start throwing some interesting, crazy stuff at us. Start throwing like mutated people, or start throwing like these bandits or thugs that like come out and they just throw something interesting at us. Fighting the same AIM robots or AIM like mech suits with people in them with the same skin, the same visual representation every time has gotten so stale so quickly. How they didn't have the foresight to have that be different, even if it was, you could see the faces of some of the enemies and it was all randomly generated, or if they had randomly generated like modifiers on their body to make some of them skinnier or fatter or thick, anything to give us something different to look at while we're playing the game, because we are playing through these sections over and over and over and over again, because like I mentioned before, when you use another character that you haven't already leveled up, there is no catching up. There's no extended experience that your characters get for being in your party. You have to start all the way over. So how is this not already a thing?